this out. But I'm really trying to understand the nature of our society. You know, a few weeks ago, everybody was talking about we need to get back to normal. Maybe a month or so ago, we need to get back to normal. And to me, it has seemed that the normal that we have wanted to get back to, the most comfortable thing, the most comforting thing that this nation has sort of reverted back to after this quarantine, has been the abuse of black people. We saw this sort of ridiculous reintroduction of policing into black communities, ultimately leading to the death and execution of black men and women. Arrested cops that killed Breonna Taylor. These motherfuckers still aren't locked up. And I'm really trying to understand what the people who are trying to maintain things like this, you're trying to maintain a system where police officers can execute people in the street, even at the request of the crowd and people screaming, "Don't do it, please stop," blah, 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 and you still kill somebody on camera. I'm trying to understand what your mindset is, because let me paint the picture bigger. Because what happens a lot of times in American society is we don't paint big pictures, so we don't see the larger picture. So let me give you the larger picture. There's a nation that is doing things around the world that are literally contributing to the overall benefit of human life on this planet. Let me not say nations. There are nations. There are nations that are sending out medical professionals, that are sending out sciences and technologies that are literally changing the life outcomes of people around the world. The United States of America is not one of those countries. These countries include China, it includes Russia, it includes Cuba, it includes Iran, all nations that the mainstream media circus in this country vilifies. So I'm trying to understand what your end game is here. The people who are brutalizing people in the streets, the people who are overusing their power privileges by being police officers, the people that are in the streets harassing black people, they're these Karens and Kevins now, all of you capitalists at all costs, capitalists, profit over people type folks, what is your end game here? Because what you're doing is you're furthering the idea that American society has nothing positive to contribute to the world. So in fact, as you get mad and more angry at black people, more angry at immigrants, more angry at gay people, more angry at the young generations, the millennials, and all these other generations that are rejecting your bullshit, and you say you are the reason that America is not great. No, you are the reason. Let me explain something. The Chinese teach their people something very young. It's called the 100 Years of Shame. Now, you'll never hear your so-called scholars talk about this. Understand, Uncle D is the first one putting you on game. The Chinese people teach their children, their young people, something called the 100 Years of Shame. The 100 Years of Shame is the period in which they say, right, and they teach, and they believe this to their core, that China should be ashamed of itself, because in this 100 years, China worked to the benefit of other groups and against the benefit of the Chinese. And they teach their children that this should never, ever, ever, ever happen again. That at no point ever should China accept the ways of other people over their own. That no way should the Chinese people ever allow their nation to work better for other people, all while doing harm to their own citizens. This is why China has risen in the last 70 years the way it's risen. Peacefully, intact, culturally as solid as a nation has ever been in the history of the world. So the idea that somehow beating up black people in the street, executing people on camera, over-sentencing people, continuing to purport and produce racist ideology, continuing to have a system that puts profits for businesses over people, continuing this whole idea that white people are right and white people are the default, and that white supremacy and Western ideology is to be the main course meal for everybody on the planet. Continuing to promote this is only speeding up the decline of this nation. So I'm trying to figure out what your motive is. Like, what is it that you are doing? Because you are not helping yourself in the eyes of the world. There are only 300 million Americans. There are 7 billion other people on this planet. So I don't understand what you think, the end goal is going to be here. The problem is not black people. The problem is not folks haven't been willing to accept these old oligarchical, in my opinion, just old, ancient, outdated ways of thinking and living that other nations wholly reject now. They're not fucking with us, right? In the eyes of most people around this world, America is seen as a rogue state. So explain to me what the end goal is here, man. I'm just trying to get clear. I'm constantly in study, constantly in research. I understand the dynamics that we're facing economically. But how are we going to change them when you don't have a clear view or vision of what the world looks like in the world that you're facing? These ideological games, playing this mess like we did with Hong Kong and the NBA, that shit ain't gonna go nowhere. Are you crazy? The Chinese are literally the most organized, evolved people. I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like this in world history, even beyond the damn Nile River and the Egyptians, because they were never able to civilize the entire continent in a way that 1.4 billion people are in mental, emotional, and spiritual agreement with one another. I don't understand what your point is. I don't understand what you think you're going to accomplish by we got to hold on to what America was. America never was anything that most nations wanted to be. It's just a story that you've told yourself and you've convinced yourself is real.